Hello everyone. Today we're gonna talk about how to build a Quality Paladin in the Elden Ring. So the Quality Paladin is the build that uh, uses most out of you being a faith build, while at the same time we absolutely avoid in this build all the broken gimmicks and cheese that game can pull off. So no bleed, no Blasphemous Blade weapon art spam that, pretty much makes all the incantations and spells in the game useless. No Glinstone Pebble weapon art spam and with infinite stun lock. Uh, we just try to make an honest quality build where you have optimized and strong faith paladin, melee fighter and caster. So we optimize definitely to be strong, to progress, to feel that we are, beating the game. But at the same time we just don't use all the broken stuff and try to trivialize everything and focus on one gimmick and that's it, because this is something that I did when I was playing first time and doing bleed build, and I didn't really feel satisfied in the late game when I was just trivializing everything by spamming seppuku curved swords at bosses, or when I was playing my Dragon Cultist build in New Game Plus and I was free-shotting every boss, including free-shotting Radan with the Blasphemous Blade, Taker's Flame weapon art. I got bored, so I decided to start the game again from weapon 1 and do the Faith build that is similar to how I like it to play in Dark Souls 3, when I was just, playing a paladin who buffs his weapons, have self-heals, have some lightning and spells, and roams around, try to make use of the most amount of weapons, spells, and forces my gameplay to use all these tools to achieve victory. So let's take a look at the build. So we start as the Vagabond here. We're level 75. This is our stats. I wanted to achieve the soft. So first of all, what we want to achieve is the soft cap of the vigor. The first soft cap, which is a 40. Then the second and last you should aim for is 60. So 40 will serve us for a long time. This is what you want to have. Mind 30, endurance 30. Mind 30 is important because you want to have enough mana to cast all the buffs, while still having some left mana to, for example, reapply an electrify armament, or open up with some spell, so on and so forth. Endurance 30 is because for armor I want to wear for a fashion. Strength and dexterity you have 24 and 27, but our goal is to have 19 and 22. And I'll tell you why. And faith is currently 37. We want to take it to 40 as fast as possible, so in the next 3 levels I will level that up to 40, and then I'll focus solely on faith till probably till 50, and then I will I'll put 5 points in vigor and endurance, just so I can stop using the Radagon Sword Seal talisman, which I currently have. So let's take a look at our gear. So this build uses the tree spear as our main weapon and the brass shield with the barricade shield. This is very important weapon because you can get it early by going around the Stormvein Castle, and I'll put the link to all the weapons, armors and things you need for this weapon and below the video, so we don't make it like 2-hour long video where you can get everything. I'll put the links below. This weapon is great because not only it's a great spear, so it has high poise damage, high reach, and can be used behind the shield to really help you in early to mid game with a lot of bosses and mini bosses and enemies, especially when you don't have a lot of flasks. So it's very important that you are not getting hit, and the block combined with the poke really helps that. It deals physical and holy damage and has a built-in faith scaling, and it can be buffed with the Electrify, Armament and other weapon buffs from the incantations, and this is only one of the 3 weapons that can do it, and this allows it to reach very high amount of damage, doing 3 split damage, and split damage is the king of early to mid game, because before the pure damage can get advantage with very high scaling from the very high combat stats. The split damage will always provide you with better AR. So at this level we have plus 14 spear, which is my currently best upgraded weapon. The others are only plus 10 because I still have to go and farm for the rest. So we have 475 AR, and when we buff it with Electrify Armament we get 599, so we get 124 extra damage from the Electrify Armament, which is very high. And Electrify Armament is your best incantation buff. The Vike Dragon Spear or something like that is absolutely not worth it, because it adds the same amount of damage as Electrify Armament while lasting less and costing more, so don't use that. Sacred Order gives you lower amount of damage than Electrify Armament, and it's holy, and holy is worse than lightning. The Blood Flame is lower damage, and it's only good when used on weapons with bleed damage, and we avoid the bleed weapons on this build. So the best overall incantation to buff weapons is definitely the Electrify Armament. That's why we have it, and it's buffed with our Gravelstone. And for our seals we have Gravelstone and Godslayer, and if you have a friend who could drop you a second pair of those, kindly ask them to do. That's because when you dual wield the same, not necessarily the same, but basically if you dual wield seals, you get passive bonuses from both of them. So if I cast Lightning Spear from my left seal, which is upgraded one, but I have the unupgraded one in my right hand, I'll get double 15% damage buff to my Dragon Cult incantations. And Dragon Cult incantations currently early game we have Lightning Spear only and the Electrify Armament. So Tree Spear is a great weapon. It has very good moveset, can be used from behind the shield. The Brass Shield, the best shield in the game with the Fingerprint Shield. It requires only 16 strength to wield. Maximum upgraded with Barricade will give you 100 guard boost. Very good shield. The only medium shield that really worth, wasting your using your smithing stones to upgrade. And Tree Spear has very good moveset. It has very powerful double thrust on the power attack. Its weapon art is Medicore, but we don't use it because we can buff it with Electrify Armament, so we don't care about it. Very good weapon to get, and this will be your main weapon throughout the most of the early to mid game, till we can get some, well, not better, but different weapons upgraded and use them with the Flame Art infusion, which we'll talk about a little bit. So spells you want to use on this build are as following: the Golden Vow, of course, the Black Flame, because the Black Flame destroys a lot of bosses, especially 3 bosses. I destroyed Radan on my first try on this build on level 70 without issue, just running on Torrent and using the Black Flame on him, because not only deals fire damage, but also it applies damage over time that eats 2% maximum HP per second from enemies, so the more health enemies have, the better it is. I use this to kill all the 3 bosses in Kaelid, here in Limgrave, in Lakes, that they are super easy to kill with the Black Flame Blade, with the Black Flame. We have Flame Grant Me Strength because it's a very good physical buff, which buffs our physical and our fire damage, which is very good for buffing our Black Flame damage, and our Flame Art infused weapons, because they will do both fire and physical damage. We have Great Heal, which has actually for the most part better usage than our healing flask, because it will heal not that much less than a healing flask, while eating only partially of our FP bar. So you can actually run with more FP flask like I do. I actually on Paladin like to run around with more FP flask, because if I have low HP I just heal myself with Great Heal, and I only use flask, you know, like in real emergencies like fighting with boss I need to heal fast. But when I roam around in the world and doing a PvP in open world, I just use Great Heal. We have Frenzy Burst, because the Frenzy Burst is the long range spell that is very good on picking up targets from a very long distance, like enemy casters, like some, you know, pesky archers, crossbows, men, etc, etc. So those are the spells I recommend. You can exchange the Frenzy Burst with the what's the spell is called, the other frenzy spell, the Flame of Frenzy, which is AoE in front of you. But honestly, I never found much use of AoE spells in this game. You know, if usually you have a lot of trash enemies that can be AoE'd, you can just simply run to most of them, you know, just one-shot them. So I don't really use it, but you can use it, then switch your one of your seals for the offhand Frenzy Flame, so you get extra 20% buff on that damage, but always cast from your highest scaling, faith scaling seal, because actually higher scaling will out damage the Frenzy Flame passive buff, unless you have really spread out attributes, because the Frenzy Flame seal scales with a lot of stats. So mostly on pure faith like this, you are better with just using higher scaling seal. Alright, so Tree Spear, our main build, our main weapon, Brass Shield, all can be farmed and get really early in the game. The armor I'm using is a Cleanrot armor. Cleanrot armor. You can farm it in Khalid, in Heart of Aeonia, and also there you can farm another great weapon for our build, is a Halo Scythe. The Halo Scythe is a very good weapon when you deal with some bosses that you can fight from distance. Then you can just spam on them the weapon art, which has very high DPS, very long range, very good tracking, and doesn't eat, as you can see, a lot of FP. So if you boost yourself with some items that boost holy damage, like you know, a Flask of Wondrous Physick that boosts holy damage, the Sacred Scorpion Charm with boosts holy damage, you can deal a lot of DPS with that, especially with versus enemies that are not strong versus holy weapon. You have a Wing Sight, which is a fine weapon to use. You can also find a Cleanrot Spear, which is not really a strong weapon, but it has very nice looking weapon art, which has a good AoE. So if you want to have some, you know, AoE option versus a lot of enemies, you can just use the Cleanrot and, you know, and spam that. I'm not a fan of it, but it's not a bad weapon at all. And what you want to do as fast as possible is first of all rush and get the Radagon Sword Seal, which will give you +5 to the physical stats, which allow you to get minimal requirements for the Tree Spear and from some two-handed weapons very early. And then combine it after killing Godric with the Great Rune, with Godric Great Rune, that will give us +5 to all our stats. This way we can achieve on this level 75 a soft cap in Vigor, in Endurance and in Mind, and also have Dexterity and Strength enough to wield the most weapons we want. Now later in the game we'll want to swap Radagon Sword Seal, and you want to swap Radagon Soul Seal once you give 5 more Vigor points, 5 more Endurance points, because then you have a diminishing returns, because 45 Vigor doesn't give you much. The next big soft cap for Vigor is 60, so you want to then get rid of the Radagon Sword Seal and only stay on the Godric Great Rune, and then, you know, exchange this for some other good talisman, like Godfrey Icon, which will boost our Lightning Spear and our Black Flame, or Lightning Scorpion Charge, which will boost our Electrify Armament damage from the Tree Spear, and our Lightning Strike, or a Holy Scorpion to boost our Halo Scythe, or Great Talisman to boost our Brass Shield stability. Oh, and by the way, don't use the Spear Talisman. The Spear Talisman is absolutely god tier on PvP, but it's actually not that good in PvE, because in PvE the counter strikes, if you don't know, only applies when enemies are in mid animation. So PvE enemies are actually not that much in between in animations, and bosses have very, very small windows when that counter strike extra bonus applies, compared to players. When you PvP, they are always in some middle of animation. You know, they sprint around, they jump, they feint, you know, they bait, they attack. So in PvP, a god tier talisman. In PvE, not worth your time. There are better ones that you can get. Obviously, you want to get as much memory slots as you can, and at first, let's talk quick about the mixed physics. A Wondrous Physick. At first, you will want to use this and this, which you get from your first 3 boss, because this will boost Faith, and Faith will boost your damage of your Black Flame, damage of your Lightning Spear, all the damages, and the Crack Spear that boosts the charge attacks actually boost also charge spells like Lightning Spear, Black Flame Blade. Later, when you get more crystal tiers, you want to run with specific one. Like for example, right now I run with the fire attacks boost, but I also change to lightning when I know I'll be roaming around area, when I'll mostly rely on my electrify armament, spear, and my shield. Holy when I know I'll be using the Halo Scythe weapon art. So you mix and match those with what currently you are using. And so yeah, so this is early to mid game how you want to build. As I said, I only have 3 speed to plus 14, and I'll give the link below the video of how to get early game fast plus 10 weapons, and then be able to upgrade them from there very fast. My other weapons that I like to use are plus 10 currently, but you know, slowly steady I'll be upgrade them. My brass is also plus 10, because the tree spear is my favorite weapon. It's very paladin like, and you know, as always I like everything matched together, you know, so gold, red, electrified, and the spear really looks great. Okay, so another thing important is that your quality build, so you can use a lot of weapons thanks to the game giving you a tool which is called infusion. So infusion allows us to make any weapon we like, scale with our faith, and also deals fire damage. And fire damage, for the most part in the game, is superior with a lightning damage. Holy damage is okay, but there are a lot of enemies late game, especially like some sort of, you know, knights or some late bosses that have very high resistance to holy. So you always want to have a backup of fire, and the good thing about the Quality Paladin build is we can utilize holy, we can utilize lightning, we can utilize fire damage, so a lot of good options. So what you want to do is you want to rush as fast as possible to Radan Castle here, the red main castle, and get the red whetstone, the flame redstone whetstone from here. And you want to do it before you trigger the festival or Radan, because the doors around the castle will be opened, and once you trigger the festival they'll be closed, and you have to kill Radan, all the bosses here, and only then it will open. So if you go there early, you can get this fast, and you will be able to infuse a lot of weapons with your flame art. And flame art is great because flame art allows us to utilize all the different weapons as our faith build. And don't worry about the scaling numbers. Like this game, the scaling in Souls games is not always obvious. So if some weapon have, like, you know, B scaling and some weapon has S scaling, like logically you would think, oh, S scaling must deal more damage. That's not always the case. It's always important how the weapon scales, what's the base damage, and the greatest example of that is the colossal swords. When you have the great sword, which has A scaling in strength, and you have, for example, the watchdog sword, which has S scaling, and even on 99 strength, the great will still out damage the watchdog sword, even it has lower scaling, because the higher base damage and how the weapon scales. So not always the, you know, better letters means better damage. Sometimes weapons have better scaling, but actually because the base damage, for example, is lower, they will deal less damage, or because they are split damage, the split damage will scale differently. So always experiment, try weapons, focus on moveset, what you feel comfortable with. Don't always look at, you know, just the pure numbers here. So obviously, because this is a quality paladin build, we want to make use of a lot of weapons. So as you can see, for example, I have some weapons that I really love. I love the Banished Knight Flame Art, Banished Knight Halberd. I really like the Banished Knight Greatsword. I like Zweihander, and for example Great Mace. I think it looks great. I use it when I fight the crystalline bosses. And if you have flame art, you can infuse them and use them on your faith build. And the good thing about the flame art is not only that it scales with faith, but also it gives better boost from flame grant me strength, which boosts both physical and flame damage. So for example, I really love this weapon, so I boosted it with my favorite early and mid game weapon art, which is Flaming Strike. The Flaming Strike is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful weapon art, because not only it gives you high poise damage, which costs only 4 FP, this costs 4 FP, but also allows you to continue this weapon art with your R2, which most people don't know. There are a lot of people who think that this weapon art only does this, because this is actually what you have if you use the L2, which is the default key to triggering weapon arts. But if you follow this with the R2 of your weapon, there's a second part of weapon art which gives you a powerful sweep that deals fire damage and also buffs your weapon with a fire buff. And this weapon deals, and this weapon art deals very high poise damage, and it buffs our weapon. So as you can see right now, my the weapon has 400 AR, and if I use this, I get 460 AR, and if I buff myself further with Flame Grant Strength, it's 550 AR right now, because now our fire buff was multiplied with our Flame Grant Me Strength. And why this weapon art is so good is because it only lasts 30 seconds, but it's very easy to apply it again without breaking our damage, because we are, you know, fighting enemy, our buff ended, and what we do is we just, you know, we do damage and we can continue, you know, or our fighting and everything. And if our buff again stops and we are to attack boss or enemy again, we just do the weapon art combo and we have it buffed again. It's a very good weapon art, and it also gives us an AoE. This one is short AoE, but it is con, and the following strike is a very wide sweep, which works great with long weapons like halberds, for example. And it deals, as I said, a high poise. So I'll show you on this knight below that is roaming here, because he actually has a very high poise, how we can combine it. Because there are two ways you can do it. We're gonna buff ourselves. You can just use a weapon art fully, so but so we were just using a full weapon art here, so this and this to deal the most amount of damage. But actually, because this flames you use first deals a lot of poise damage, and if you have a weapon fast enough, you can actually chain that with a light attacks and still keeping enemy stun locked without having to use your second power of weapon art again after the initial buffing, so you don't waste FP. So I'll show you again. You buff yourself, Golden Vow, always buff yourself wherever you'll be fighting. It's 1 minute and a half. So we start with, with weapon art to buff, and then we do this, light attack, this, light attack, boom. And as you can see, this way we are very FP efficient, because we only use 4 FP into light attack, 4 FP into wide attack, into light attack, 4 FP into light attack, and if our buff wears off, then we do again the sweep and we go back to this. Now, why this weapon art is also great, because it allows very heavy weapons that normally have very slow attacks to attack very, very fast. Like if we take, for example, the Great Mace. Great Mace usually have very slow attacks and not a lot of wide sweeps. But if we use a Flaming Strike on it, we're gonna buff ourselves. Open up with the Black Flame, because why not? And then we're gonna do the boom, boom, boom. See how fast this is? So normally the weapons that are heavy, like Colossal Swords, Great Hammers, Great Axes, actually if you use the full weapon art, they are actually very fast weapons. Now this is not really much slower than a great sword's the great sword chain attack. Like, let's compare that. So we have 1, 2, 3, and you can chain that, and it's not that much slower than this, but we are using a very heavy weapon, and you can do it with any infusible colossal weapon, great hammer, great axe, and so on and so forth, and deal a lot of damage. My another favorite weapon, which I love the moveset on, is the Banished Knight Greatsword. It's faster than most greatswords and has great movement, and again, you infuse that with the Flame Art and the Flame Strike, and you have yourself a very powerful flame-infused weapon, which buffs itself and scales great with our Flame Grant Me Strength and everything. And thanks to the Flame Wet Blade and the Flaming Strike weapon art, you can use any weapon you love, the moveset, on the Quality Paladin build, and still have very high damage, as a faith build, and you don't have to also use only flaming strike. You can use some mundane non-elemental weapon arts. For example, here on my flame Zweihander I have stomp, uppercut, which I absolutely love. I love this weapon art, same as the piercing fang, for example, on lance, something like that. But because of the flame whetstone, I can still infuse them with flame art and have them scale with faith. But I have fun with a lot of different things, and I think that this is what this build is about, you know. So you have fun with the most amount of the weapons, weapon arts, etc. on your paladin build, because you are not only caster, you are still a warrior, right? Boom. I love this weapon art so much. Boom, and enemies flying. So you know, experiment with all those weapons you like. I, for example, love the Zweihander moveset. I love the Banished Knight moveset. I love the Banished Knight Halberd moveset. But if you like, you know, the overhead halberd moveset, use that. You know, have fun, because the flame strike and the flame art infusion are very potent, especially in the early mid game, where remember that the scaling is very low because you don't have very high stats. So the scaling actually is better than if you were like pure strength and pure dex build, because they can't yet get most out of their pure high stats, because there's not enough weapons with very high scaling. They're not upgraded, and they still also have to, you know, put points in vigor, endurance, and so on. And split damage in PvE is actually better than the pure damage for the most part. So use a lot of weapons you like, infuse them. I recommend the flame strike, and have fun, because this is the quality paladin, and you are still, you know, a very strong caster, because you can still cast, you know, lightning spear, flame burst, and everything. Especially, you know, we're gonna use a flame burst here, for example. You know, you have the enemies far down there. And we buff ourselves. Boom. 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 See that? So, yeah, or we can just, you know, use lightning strike. Lightning strike always good. Yeah. So also this build only has 2 talismans, because I said I wanted to make a build about, you know, early build, not a late game build. X now, because why not? And I wanted to do the build about the early game, so we still didn't defeat Renala yet, and the Godfrey. But it doesn't matter, really, you know. It's but you know, it doesn't 713 AR. It doesn't matter, because 2 talismans is enough what you need. Second one I use Green Turtle, because when you are using a tree spear with the shield, it'll be a long time before you get the brass shield to maximum, so you can have 100% stamina, guard boost and stamina. Your stamina won't be moving when enemies will be attacking you, so the Green Turtle allows me to get back my stamina very fast in boss fights or any other fights. so I can block again. That's why I recommend it. And once I get, you know, the other two talismans, I'll probably be at the point when I won't be using Radagon's Sword Seal. So I will probably exchange Radagon's Sword Seal to Godfrey Icon, because this will buff my Lightning Strike, my Black Flame, and I'll probably another slot put the Scorpion Charm, whatever one I will be feeling like using, like, you know, fire if I'll be running with my fire infused weapon, lightning with I use lightning armament, you know, maybe Alexander Shard just to boost the flaming strike damage. You know, there's a lot of good talismans. The great shield talisman, which boosts your guard by 10%, is also very good to achieve the maximum guard a little bit early, like on, I think, plus 23 or 22 you can get then with Barricade 100 if you use the great talisman. And yeah, that's how it looks like. So oh, and because we'll be relying on Godric Great Rune for a long of time, you want to get as much rune arcs as possible. I'll be putting down the videos below where you can find farm rune arcs. If you don't like doing invasions, which are the easy way to get rune arcs, you can you can helping other people in co-op to defeat bosses. There are many bosses that are easy to farm for rune arcs, or you can farm rats in certain spots when they're close to the grace to respawn them and farm rune arcs like this. And this build, due to the fact that we are paladin, we are faith, and we use shield with the great spear, we have flame strike, which deals high poise. It's very tanky, and because we hit the soft cap of vigor very early, the 40 vigor, we are not easy to kill. I died only like 2 times on this build so far, I think, in 75 levels, maybe 3, because I don't remember how much I died on one particular boss, I think once or twice. So yeah, very tanky, very hard to die on this one. And great heal incantation allow you to carry more mana flasks, because the great heal actually can outperform cost to heal the healing flasks. So yeah, hard to die on this one. So if you have around like 20 rune arcs, which are easy to get, it will serve you for a really long time before you will have to, you know, like farm them again. And game from time to time gives you some, so it's not like you won't find any more of them during your adventures. And I think this is it. Worth to mention that later we'll be trying to get the Troll Hammer weapon, which is another one of the 3 weapons with Tree Spear that deals split damage. In case of Troll Hammer, that's physical and fire, and can still be buffed by the incantations, so we'll be able to buff it by the Electrify Armament, which will also give us a very strong strike damage weapon with high poise damage, and with better weapon arc than the Tree Spear. But it's not like we need a weapon arc on this one. You generally don't want, like, you know, weapon arc that you use a lot when you use a weapon that you know you'll be using with a shield poke tactic, because the shield weapon art will always take priority when using weapon art anyway. So the Tree Spear is actually a perfect weapon for this kind of tactic. And so yeah, and as for incantations, we'll want to get the Dragon Lightning, Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike for the bosses, like, you know, dragons. We'll want to get the Black Flame Protection, Barrier of Gold for fighting with bosses like, you know, Ranala and magic enemies. And the Black Flame will stay with us quite a long time because of his damage over time, but we'll also take a look later at the Giant Flame Take the spell, which if we don't use Blasphemous Blade, which we won't here, will deal the most amount of fire damage from all the incantations. But that is for the late game. This is an early to mid game guide, how to beat a Quality Paladin and how to get your stats right. Remember, level up your faith to 40 and then put 5 points into vigor and endurance so you can get rid of the Radagon Sword Seal and stay only on the Godric rune, and from there I would probably want to hit 16 faith and then focus further on the vigor. And yeah, so this is the Quality Paladin guide. You know, use a lot of weapons, use the flame art infusion, have fun with different weapon arts, have fun with the tree spear, mix being caster with your lightning spear, with your black flame, mix it with you being a melee, with you buffing yourselves, your weapons and everything, and you know, try to, like me, don't use gimmicks like bleed and other stuff. You'll really find that in the long run you'll still feel strong, you'll still feel powerful and capable of clearing this game no problem. Actually, I didn't have any problem with clearing most of the bosses so far. But it will feel much more achieved and you'll have fun with much more weapons, more stuff to do, more tools the game give you. Alright guys, so this is it. I hope you'll find it useful and you'll give Quality Paladin a try. Oh, and by the way, if later in the game you'll think that you don't really like, you know, dexterity weapons like the tree spear, a Halo Scythe or something like that, and you feel like there are some colossal big weapons that you like to infuse with the flame strike and with some weapon art with the flame art infusion, you know, just respec, put more points into strength, lower dexterity. This is not like, you know, set in stone. The beauty of the Quality Paladin build is thanks to the infusions. You can always readjust your strength and dexterity ratio and use the weapons you love the most and still be a faith paladin build. Alright guys, so this is it. Thank you very much for watching and see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.